Shabbat Shalom. Shalom Aleichem, everyone. Welcome, and we're glad to have you with us for this beautiful Sabbath evening in the middle of the summer. We're going to do a special melody, Amar Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Akiva's teachings, the great teacher who was the leader of the Jewish community in Jerusalem at the end of the first century in the Common Era. So the words are, because you don't have it in your prayer book, Amar Rabbi Akiva, and then it repeats, Amar Rabbi Akiva, Ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And then repeats again, l'recha kamocha, your neighbor or your friend as yourself. Ze'klal gadol, this is the great teaching of the great law, gadol b'Torah, the great teaching in the Torah. So as you know, the words are a paraphrase from Leviticus, from the verse in chapter 19 in Leviticus, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. All right, thanks to Wendy and Alma, Jolene, and Lela. Let's begin singing together, Amar Rabbi Akiva. Second song you'll find in the back of the Siddur in our prayer book on top of page 645. On 645, the beautiful words Lechilach, which again is a paraphrase from the famous verse in the beginning of chapter 12 of Genesis, when God tells Abram, go forth from your land to a new land, to a land that I will show you, namely the land of the future Israel, called in those days Canaan. And this is another version of this famous sentence, Lechilach, to a land that I shall show you, was composed and arranged by Debbie Friedman, one of our great American composers.
Place that I will show you.
Let's turn to the blessing over the Shabbat candles. And I hope you'll be able to light your own Sabbath candles at home. We won't light the candles during the daytime, but we begin with a meditation on page 121, and then we'll sing the blessing for Adlakat HaNerot. A source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter the sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Let's read together a beautiful meditation, page 126. On 126 together we'll read. I begin with a prayer of gratitude for all that is holy in my life. God needs no words, no English or Hebrew, no semantics and no services, but I need them. Through prayer I can sense my inner strength, my inner purpose, my inner joy, my capacity to love. As I reach upward in prayer, I sense these qualities in my Creator. To love God is to love each other, to work to make our lives better. To love God is to love the world God created, to work to perfect it. To love God is to love dreams of peace and joy that illumine all of us, and to bring that vision to life. Let's turn, as we always do on Sabbath evening, to the Psalms, the 6 Psalms that welcome the Sabbath, beginning with Psalm 95. We're on page 130, page 130. And we sing together, Chudna Ranana. Come, let us sing joyously to Adonai, raise a shout for our rock and deliverer. Let us come into God's presence with praise. Let us raise a shout for God in song. For Adonai is a great God, the great ruler of all divine beings. In God's hands are the depths of the earth. The peaks of the mountains are God's. God's is the sea, God made it, and the land which God's hands fashioned. Come, let us bow down and kneel, bend the knee before Adonai, our Maker. For Adonai is our God, and we are the people God tends, the flock in God's care. Oh, do it, let He God's charge this day. Let's continue with Psalm 97. We're on the top of page 133. Adonai is sovereign. Let the earth exult and the many islands rejoice. Dense clouds are around God. Righteousness and justice are the base of God's throne. O you who love Adonai, hate evil. God guards the lives of God's loyal ones, saving them from the hand of the wicked. Light is sown for the righteous, radiance for the upright. O you righteous, rejoice in Adonai, and acclaim God's holy name. So we turn to the beautiful words of Lela Dawkins, composed by Rabbi Shlomo Alkabetz, who was a 16th century Kabbalist, lived in Safat in northern Israel, along with Isaac Luria and others, Chaim Vital, and together they gathered in the fields and the hills of Safat to welcome the Sabbath, which was an intimation of the Messianic time, and bring God into the world, bring God, so to speak, down from the highest of highs into the world of the Shekhinah, into our dwelling place. So let's sing together verses 1, 2, and 9 on page 138, 139. So we continue, if you're able, in the Amidah position, meaning we're standing up as we begin to chant together Yitkadav V'Yikadash, the Chatzi Kaddish, on page 144. Page 144. Yitkadav V'Yikadash Me'Rabba, Yamadi Rakute, Yamliv Malchute, Echayechon, U'Yomechon, U'Chayechon Ve'Yisrael. Agala, Agala, U'Bizman Karib, Imru, Amen. Yesh Me'Rabba Me'Bora, Le'alam Yamel Maya, Yebarach, Baruch Hu, we're in the middle of page 146. Baruch Hu et Adonai Havorach, Baruch Adonai Havorach, Leolam Vaed. Let's read together the first blessing before the Shema Yisrael, middle of page 148. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzebaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch atah Adonai, Amariv Arabim. The second blessing, Ahavat Olam, together on page 150. Everlasting love, you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Let's sing together the words of Shema Yisrael on page 152. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto, Leolam Vaed. Everyone can be seated. We turn to the words of Deuteronomy from the traditional V'ahavta paragraphs. We're on page 154 and we'll read together in Hebrew and in English. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha u'v'lechtecha b'derech u'v'shachpecha u'v'kumecha u'kshartam le'ot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'einecha u'ktabtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha L'man tizkaru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim le'Elohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem. Amen. Let's read together. You shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand. Let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God. Adonai Elohechem Emet. So we turn now to the words from the book of Exodus. Mi chamocha. We're on 158. Who is like you, Almighty God, among all the other deities that are worshipped in this world?
Duet. Alma and Wendy are going to play the Hashkivenu for us, and you may follow the words, the Hebrew and the English on page 160. Let's read the English together in the middle of 161. Give us a place to rest, Adonai our God. Bring us into shelter in the soft, long evening shadows of your truth. For with you are true protection and safety, and in your presence are acceptance and gentle love. Watch over us as we go forth. Prepare for us as we return. Spread over us your shelter of peace, over all we love, over our Jerusalem and yours. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom aleinu, v'al amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. So if you turn the page, you'll find the Vishamru and the Yismachu on page 162. This evening, for this Shabbat, we're going to sing the Yismachu. Shabbat
the 7 blessings for Shabbat evening, and we're on page 164. If you're able, you may stand and sing with us. We begin with a beautiful verse from Psalm 51. O God, let our mouths declare your praise, because on the Sabbath all the blessings are about giving thanks and praising the Almighty. We're not asking for anything on this day. Adonai sefatav tita uvia tehillatcha. Adonai, open up my lips, and my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Elohei Lagadol Hagibor Ha'Nurah, Elohei Romer Chasadim Tovim, V'Monei Hakol, V'Zocher Chayavot V'Mahor, V'Mevei Kulam, V'Mei Behem, L'man Shemo V'Ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magin, Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Avraham Ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh Hakol et Harav Le'Hoshia, Mechaveh Chaim V'Chesed, Mechayeh Hakol V'Rachamim Rabim, Tzomech Noflim V'Rofeh Cholim, U'Matir Asurim, U'Mekayeh Emunato L'Shenei Afar, Mikamocha Rabiburo, U'Midom Elav, Melech Memid, U'Mechayeh, U'Matzmiach Yeshua, V'Ne'arata V'Averot HaRakot, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh Hakol. On page 170, the blessing for holiness. You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. Turn with me and we'll read together in the middle of page 172, the sanctification of the Sabbath day. You have set aside the seventh day for your name, the pinnacle of creation, and you blessed it above all other days, more sacred than all festival times. So it is written in your Torah, the heaven and earth were finished in all their array. On the seventh day God had completed the work that had been done, ceasing then on the seventh day from all the work that God had done. And God blessed the seventh day, made it holy, and ceased from all the creative work that God had chosen to do. Bottom of the page. Our God, a God of our ancestors, be pleased with our rest. Sanctify us with your mitzvot, and grant us a share in your Torah. Satisfy us with your goodness, and gladden us with your salvation. Purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In your gracious love, Adonai our God, grant as our heritage your holy Shabbat. That Israel, who sanctifies your name, may rest on it. Praise you, Adonai, who sanctifies Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. We can all be seated. So we're going to read together the Ritzei. We're The translation we're using is in the middle of page 175. Page 175. This blessing is asking the Almighty to help us come back to the land of Israel and to bestow the divine presence, the Shekinah, unto the land and to the people in Israel. You are with us in our prayer, our love, and our doubt, and our longing to feel your presence and do your will. You are the still clear voice within us. Therefore, O God, when doubt troubles us, when anxiety makes us tremble, when pain clouds the mind, we look inward for the answer to our prayers. There may we find you, and there find courage, insight, and endurance. And let our worship bring us closer to one another, that all Israel and all who seek you may find new strength for your service. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levadcha v'yira na'avod. We continue with the blessing of Thanksgiving. Modim, we're on page 176. Let's read top of page 177. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth, which day by day sustains us. For all these and more, we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, u'lecha na'eh lehodot. So our seventh blessing, as we all know, is Shalom Rav, the blessing of peace. Let's sing together. We're on page 178.
May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you. Be acceptable to you. Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Lord, my rock and redeemer.
So as we remember, we're in the middle of Numbers. The people are marching through the desert, or straggling through the desert, as it were. And we come to Pinchas, the story of a young Israelite man who was part of the Levitical families. And it begins with a very difficult, problematic story, namely that in the desert, the Israelite people were followed by or chased after by many other tribes, non-Jewish tribes, and there was a certain amount of intermarriage among people. And in the midst of all this, the Midianite women are busy chasing after Jewish men, which, according to biblical law, is a sin, an avera. Pinchas sees that the Jewish men, the Israelite men, are succumbing to the blandishments of the Midianite women, and he gets so upset that when he sees one particular couple in an intimate moment, he picks up a spear, a metal spear, and stabs the two of them to death. A rather zealous crime, to say the least, if not an outright murder. We're not going to discuss all the problems and the ramifications of this action, or whether it can be justified, as it seems to be justified in the Torah, but suffice it to say that because of the zealotry of Pinchas and his family, later in Jewish history, the Sadducite line, in other words, the succession of priestly families, is derived from Pinchas and from his forebears. And by the way, Sadducite is the Hebrew for Sadducees. The Sadducees, who were one of the two dominant political parties in the first century of the Common Era, prove their lineage tracing all the way back to the 8th century BCE to the family, or to the lineage, the line of Pinchas and his future generations. We'll save that for another day. I want to talk about turning the other cheek. So, since we have seen so many instances in the past few months where people are marching and protesting and standing up for justice and for mercy and kindness in the midst of so many tumultuous and problematic things going on in our country, the question is, should we always turn the other cheek? Obviously, when somebody strikes you or when your enemy hits you, the most gratifying quick response would be to hit that person or persons right back. But we also have to look at whether such immediate response makes sense. The rabbis say, Ezehu Gibor, who is a strong person, meaning someone really in control, who has some power within, both spiritually and physically. Ezehu Gibor HaKovesh et Yitzro. The one who's really strong is the person who knows how to control himself, not the person who lashes out and tries to hit the other person just because somebody rear-ended your nice brand new automobile. But nevertheless, you know, in Christian theology, there's this notion that we should turn the other cheek. If someone slaps you in the face, rather than slapping back, we should turn the other cheek, because the power of love and understanding is much greater than the power of vengeance or retribution. Probably the most famous exponent of such thinking was Mahatma Gandhi. You know all about Gandhi's walk to the sea to gather salt, to fight against the British imperialism. Gandhi created this notion of satyagraha, nonviolent response to the violence of the British soldiers who beat and often would shoot his Indian followers. And through this incredible, massive passivity, Gandhi and his followers ultimately, as you know, proved to the world that there was another way to rule and lead this subcontinent of India. In America, who are the great exponents of nonviolence? Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King surely is the most famous example. And we've seen too many movies and too many clips on television of the Jim Crow South in the 40s and 50s, and watching African Americans, Black Americans being clubbed and being beaten by those forces of the state authorities, of the police, of the state police, and so forth. And the most egregious exponent of that was, in fact, Governor George Wallace. May his name be erased. But you know, turning the other cheek doesn't always work. It doesn't always work. I mean, if you think about what's going on in the world, if you and I lived in Myanmar or in Somalia or in Hong Kong these days, if you turn the other cheek, you're liable to get run over or killed. And I think many provinces in southwest China, where they have established internment camps, i.e. concentration camps for the ethnic Uyghurs. Turning the other cheek doesn't get us very far. We know that the enormity of evil in this world is so great that sometimes it has to be that we fight back. There is a misconception that has often been spoken about in terms of the Holocaust, that the Jews just meekly walked into the gas chambers and never fought back. It's truly a lie. It is a complete falsification of the facts, because we know from so many first-hand reports that Jews fought. Jews tried to sabotage their living quarters in Auschwitz, in Sobibor, in Terezin. In fact, many Jewish citizens literally died before they got to the gas chambers because they were willing to risk their lives and fight against the Nazi army that controlled these camps. That was a proper response. Not everybody could do that, but some who had the means and the guts and the courage were willing to fight against rather than cooperate with evil. So why am I talking about all this turning the cheek? Because in this Torah portion, it says we should harass the Midianites. We should go after the Midianites and fight them, i.e. we should, if necessary, kill them. Who are the Midianites? The Midianites were one of the many tribes in the Sinai region and in southern, actually they came from southern Egypt, who were constantly chasing after the Jewish community as we traveled through the desert. And they weren't there to be friendly and nice and sit down so we could have a good cheeseburger on Thursday afternoon. They wanted to kill us. And the Torah says, you shall harass the Midianites. Why? Because the simple explanation is, you can't always convince people who are your enemy to be friendly. We can't always sit down and negotiate everything and with appeals to conscience or let someone else overtake us, because that just shows how much weaker we are. The Midrash teaches, if a person comes to kill you, you have the right and the responsibility to rise up and kill that person. In other words, my life means more than that person who's willing to attack me or my family and destroy our lives. We're not supposed to lay down and say, okay, go ahead and hit me, I'll see how I feel. The Torah and the Midrash teach you have to defend your life because your life is sacred. God gave us this life and no one has the right under any law or legal system to take it from us. Let's sort of pull this into a closer microscopic view. I'm not trying to say that most people are bad or that most people are trying to come after us and kill us. Surely that's not the case. But in our own day, and especially in the last 6 months, we have seen extraordinary bigotry, incredible, overwhelming anger, and dissolution of legal practices in this country. And at times, there are people who have felt very strongly that they have to fight back. I think we have to admit that that's, at times, the proper response. We cannot let injustice overwhelm us, but neither can we be so concerned with our own sense of righteousness and rightness that we go forward and destroy other people's lives and property wantonly. The Midianites were the original oppressors, or one of the original biblical oppressors. And the consequence of their oppression was that Jewish people were exhorted to be passionate in defending themselves. Think about it in vis-a-vis Israel. Israelis, when they're attacked, do not turn the other cheek, right? Israelis go in to the village or the community that they know from whence the soldiers have come to attack them, and they blow it up. That is the Israeli response. Surely in our politically correct world, most countries will excoriate and criticize Israel for being harsh in their reprisals. But the Israelis don't believe in turning the other cheek because it doesn't work in the world in which they live. And you and I in America perhaps have to sort of balance out turning the other cheek and standing up for our own sense of justice and righteousness. Doing bad things has a great consequence. And our Jewish sensibility, our Jewish ethos is that we should try and prevent others from doing harm to us. But if we know that they're going to do harm to us, then we have to stand up and defend ourselves. Defend ourselves even if it causes great harm to another human being. Jews do not turn the other cheek. We strike back hard enough to prevent further aggression. Shabbat shalom. So in the coming week, some special announcement that we are going to begin our summer class with Dr. Peter Chilik, our esteemed friend and member of the community. Peter is going to talk about the Kabbalah, but he's really going to talk about a number of famous writers from the Middle Ages who were part of the Kabbalistic thinking and also expanded to a greater extent on Kabbalah later on in the 1700s. So we're starting class this Wednesday night right here in the sanctuary. Everyone will be socially distanced. Everyone will be protected, monitored, and masked. And I hope you can all join us. So come on over at 6 o'clock on Wednesday evening, please. And we invite, this is not just for the temple members, but also for folks in the community.
Is it going to be Zoomed as well?
No. If we have too many people, which would be a great trouble to worry about, we can have folks sit outside so that we're not on top. We don't want anyone to be worried about one's health or so forth and so on. So we will be very, very astute to that reality. And a week from this coming Monday is our board meeting, right? Yeah. On the 20th of July. Any other special You guys going away this week?
Early next week, but we'll be here, next week.
One other thing, there is a community-wide Yom Limud, special day of learning, or 4 or 5 hours of learning this Sunday afternoon, sponsored by the Jewish Federation of New Mexico. Just Google Jewish Federation of New Mexico, and you'll see the website, and you can sign up for classes being taught by various teachers and rabbis in the community. That's this Sunday afternoon. I believe it's from 12 to 4. And it's all on Zoom. Some wonderful classes are being offered. So before we come back to our prayers, let us sing the Mishaberach and think about our friends and loved ones and family, everyone who is in need of a special blessing then. We're on page 371. Page 371. Closing prayers you'll find on page 586, in the middle of page 586. We all rise before the open ark and sing the Aleinu. Aleinu leshabeach Adon hakol, lateiku lam yotzer breshit. Shelo asanu kegoyei haratzot, velo samanu b'mishpachot adama. Shelo samanu kegahem, v'kor aleinu kechol amonam. V'anachnu korim u'mishtachvim u'modim livnei melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'nema v'hayam Adonai Melech al kol haaretz. V'yom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo On 594, page 594, let's read this poem before we come to the Kaddish prayer. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch, a fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be, and oh, to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death has touched. On this Shabbat, we remember all those who have recently been taken from us and those who have died at the season in years gone by. And now we recall those whose yardsides are remembered on this Sabbath and in the days to come. Bertha Belson, mother of Joan Scheinberg, Harry Deutsch, friend of our congregation, Phyllis Ann Fram, mother of Laura Cowan, Jerry Kaplan, friend of our congregation, and Emily Sherman, mother of Robert Sherman.
Marty Horowitz.
Marty Horowitz, friend of ours in Santa Fe, noted artist. Let's read together the Kaddish prayer with page 598, page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yamad yivrach chirutei, v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam amei amayah. Yitbarach v'yishabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei kudsha richu le'la min kol birchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechamata damiran v'yalma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba mitshemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Say shalom b'imamav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Say shalom b'imamav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Yaseh shalom. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael. Let's conclude our service with the Kiddush, the sanctification of the Sabbath day. The words you may find on page 123. 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kedushanu b'mitzvotav v'rata banu b'shabbat kadsho v'yahava ratzon in kilanu zikaron lemaseh bereshit kilu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh zecher letziyat Mitzrayim kibanu b'charta yatanu kidashta mikol amim v'shvat kodshecha v'yava uvratzon in chaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh Hashem. Amen. L'chaim. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.